Greetings all, Shane Bruce, Resto Mod Daisy, with yet another video about, guess what, a Daisy BB gun. The gun in question today is a Daisy Model 94 Red Ryder Carbine. This is one of those early 50s guns. It's got a Plymouth, Michigan roll stamp on the receiver. But this is back when they were playing around with plastic stocks. In the Model 94 guns of this vintage, you will find a plastic buttstock with a super cool looking Daisy Red Ryder logo. You'll notice that the cowboy ain't there no more. But it's got a bull with a bullseye in the middle of his forehead. I think that's pretty cool. The other cool thing about these particular guns is they also had the Daisy Credo on the backside. We've looked at this on some other models, but I've always been struck by the simplicity of the illustration and the complexity of the promises. I don't know how you could enforce that on an 8-year-old in 1952, but if they were smart enough to be able to read it, maybe they were mature enough to be able to understand it. However, it's not a bad set of values to have in terms of wandering around the backyard and blasting away at pine cones. Well, let's take a look at this piece a little bit, back out a little bit here. We've got the 3-star straight lever, and this is one of the 94s that was essentially sold as a boy's rifle. The distance between the trigger and the top or the heel of the buttstock is roughly 12 inches. So for a full-size 6-foot USA type human, it's going to be a little short, but it wasn't targeted to be sold to adults. It was targeted to be sold to young lads. Let's take a look at the roll stamp while we're in the area. It's a little rough to see. I'm going to rely on the camera's ability to get the focusing done, because in the viewfinder here I honestly can't tell what the hell's going on. It is a Plymouth gun. It does have a registration number, so you could determine the date of this. I'm probably going to guess about 55. It has a complete adjustable rear sight. This is always one of the nice features on the 94s, because you could get a flip peep, or you could use a buckhorn, and it does have an elevation adjustment, although this small screw located right here hasn't got anything to do with windage. It merely tightens down so that you can select the sight setting, peep or buckhorn, and secure it so it doesn't flop back and forth. A lot of these flop back and forth because that's a real fine little screw, and not many guys have got enough fine ground tips to be able to get that snugged in. The gun's been modded. We see that the Latigo loop is missing, and we'll see evidence of how that was done on the backside. And I draw your attention to this, the spring stop pin. This is actually the spring anchor pin. That has been removed as well. It's not as evident on this side, but when we reverse the receiver, we will see that, yeah, there's been some work done on that. Somebody, for whatever reason, decided to take that out of there, and they've scarred up the backside of the receiver pretty good. Pretty big dent in it. I'm going to try to get that resolved, but I'm not sure that that's a doable deal. The same thing was done with the Latigo loop mount. This was also set up for the 300 bolt-on scope. It was a popular item back in the day. This hole here is where the Latigo loop mount was actually at to start with, and you can see that it's had some file work done on it as well. Don't know why they pulled that. That was the older design that went through the receiver completely. But they are rather bothersome at times. In terms of original hardware, this is not an original nut any more than this is a factory screw, although it looks close. I'll actually, when I get it out of there, I'll see, but I think it's a little bit smaller diameter than the other ones. And this is also one of the 94s that had some of the Daisy decal work on it. And you can see there's a horse, and then there is a piece of rope. And back over this way, there was some other critter that was being roped. It's kind of gone with the mists of time. The customer sent the gun in because he wants it freshened up. So we're going to see if we can get this original finish to look a little more presentable. And if that's not going to look good enough, we'll probably end up fire bluing it. But we're going to try and knock some rust off of it first and see. It doesn't have any major dents or dings. You know, it's got the usual assortment of paint splotches. God knows why daisies attract loose drops of paint, but they do. And it is missing its plastic barrel band. The fore end is kind of banana-y. You know, it wiggles, it wobbles. it just won't stay on straight, you know, and that was an issue that Daisy was having with the plastics they used back in the day. On the reverse side, we can see that the apparent damage to the receiver is pretty significant. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get those file marks removed without removing too much paint. We'll just have to see how that works out. I'm willing to experiment. So, moving on down to the front of the barrel, as you can see, no major dents or dings. The original shot tube is in pretty fair condition. The gun just doesn't shoot at present. It will fire, but we're only getting the action of a air tube impacting a BB. It goes about 5 feet, falls flat. So, most likely the springs are toast. Well, not the springs. The seals are definitely toast, and the spring may be sacked. I'll know more when I open it up later today. But this should suffice for an introduction to the project. It's a Daisy Model 94 Red Ryder. We're not going to do a radical restoration on it, but we're going to see if we can get that receiver looking a little better. And most importantly, get this gun back in shooting condition so that it can head back to its original owner, who got it back in the 50s at some point in time. So it's a legacy piece. That's all we've got at this point in time on this particular gun. This is Shane Bruce with the Red Ryder Daisy, signing off.